Everybody, good evening. You're welcome to today's conversation with Chigozie George. I'm excited to be with you this evening. And I know it's going to be an awesome time together. So, wherever you're joining us, you're super welcome. And as we always do, in a moment, we're going to be connecting live on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And it's going to be another exciting conversation, an exciting show with us today. And today, we're going to be looking at we're going to be celebrating the International Women's Day, and we're basically going to be talking about women today and exploring the women that have changed our lives and contributed to who we are as a people. So sit back and get ready to enjoy with us. So I'm just going to take a moment again and connect to Facebook and Instagram as we get ready to do it. Okay, we're streaming. So if you can get us on Instagram, I'd like you to just give us a shout out and say, okay, yes, I can get you on Instagram. Okay, you could just do that for us. Thank you, thank you. All right, great. We're still trying to connect to Instagram, and all right, so we're going live on Instagram. Again, thank you for joining us. Okay, standout conversation. And one more time, I want to celebrate all the women who've contributed to our lives and making us who we are today. We just want to say thank you all and thank you for the contributions you've had in our lives. You all are super, super amazing. And I know that everywhere in the world today, people are celebrating the women in their lives. So I want to take this moment today to celebrate all the women in our lives and our mothers, our wives, our sisters, our colleagues at work. We just want to celebrate all of you for the amazing contributions that you all make to our lives, to making our lives better. So we want to say thank you to all of these wonderful, wonderful women. And one thing that we're going to be doing today, or let me quickly say this, that you know, our lives are really, really, nothing without the women that make it happen. So I want to say Happy International Women's Day one more time. Life is nothing without the women that make it happen. All of you women in our lives, you are the ones that make our lives beautiful. You're the ones that make our lives sweet. And you're the one that change our lives. You're the one that add value to our lives. You are the definition of life. Our world takes the shape of the heart of the women in our lives. The state of the heart of the women in our lives are oftentimes the state of our lives and oftentimes the state of our homes, as many of you would have known. If we say if the woman is happy, the home is happy. If the woman is excited, the home is excited. If the woman is motivated, people find motivation around them. So to all the women who contribute positively and in every way to making our lives what we are today. So we want to say a big, big, big thank you. You all are amazing, amazing women. Now, as we celebrate the International Women's Day, one of the things that you will notice is that, you know, one of the things that you will notice is that in terms of as an African, I've always seen that women play a great role in the history of humanity. And as regards African history, one of the things that you will come to realize is that people always believe that African history started with colonization. So every time people want to talk about African history, they always talk about colonization, the things that happened in the time of colonization. That's really what people talk about. That's what really people, remember about Africa: colonization, colonization, colonization. That's what people remember. But the history of Africa is way more than that. The history of Africa is way, way more than that. There are a lot of people who had great impact in African history before colonization. And in today's episode, dedicated to the International Women's Day celebration, I'm going to be exploring the lives of 5 women in African history who contributed to defining the society they lived in then. And this could be women before colonization and women during the time of colonization, women who were there as their nations struggled for independence, women who were there as their nations fought for independence, women who helped shape the identity of their countries, of their nations, of their people. Over the years, over the centuries, over all the countries in Africa, women have played great roles in shaping the lives of the people of their nations, of their people. We have had women, we have had kings, we have had queens that rule, rule nation, rule kingdoms. We have had, people who drove social changes across the continent, and all of these women, it seems like history just covers them, and the history that we read are really not our history. So we feel like when we want to make reference to women who changed times and season, women who affected generation, we always remember and we talk about, what we're talking about: present day women. We're talking about women 50 years ago, 100 years ago, as if that's all there is to us. Now, it's amazing that if you go to Greek mythology, you can find women, you can find history of people, before the BC's 80s, no, in the BC's early 80s, you could find history of people. But when it comes to African history, it seems that all of our history was wiped out and replaced with what? With colonization, the history of colonization, the history of slavery. So every time someone talks and thinks about Africa, what comes to his mind is what? Colonization. What comes to his mind is slavery. But Africa is way more than that. The African history is way more than that, richer than that. So on this occasion today, we look at some women that have affected African history, women that played their part, played a huge role in defining African history. So I want you to stay with me as we explore this together. One more time, you're welcome to the StandOut conversation. And we'll say very, very big thank you to all the women that have shaped our lives, that continue to shape our lives. And I want to give a very big shout out to my wife. Thank you, and thank you, love. You know I love you so much, and you mean so much to me. So from here, happy Women's Day, and I love you so much. There, much love to you. So let's start quickly. And the first person I'm going to talk about, I'm sure most of us do not even have never heard of the Queen Amani Renas. I'm sure most of us, and this person lived for 1440 BC. 40 BC in the kingdom of Kush. Kush is the present day South, northern Sudan. Can you imagine? This person had this. This was an incredible queen. History has it that she ruled the kingdom of Kush for 40 BC to 10 BC, and in that region that still extended up to some part of Egypt today. And she led a group of soldiers, 30,000 soldiers from the front line. And this was one of the women that led soldiers against the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire attacked them. The Roman Empire was the time the Roman Empire was so busy doing the best they could do to capture as many cities as possible. But this woman, leading a group of soldiers of 30,000, stood against them and even recaptured about three main cities. And the war went on for so long and so long and so long, and she disrupted the selling of slavery and all of this. The war went on, and there was a lot of bitter fighting for so many years, and both sides, not just the Kushite or the Nubians or the South Sudanese, as you may call them today, not just them losing. The Romans lost a lot of soldiers in the hand of this woman. Imagine back in those days, the Romans were really feared, but there rose a woman who was strong enough, courageous enough, brave enough to say, come on, guys, we can go to war, we can defend our cities, we can defend our people, we can stand for the integrity of our people, we can stand for the integrity of our nation. And this war continued until about 24 BC. And then they had a five there was they had a treaty that they had to sign, and with losses on both sides. Not that the peace treaty was because one side was winning. Of course, if one side was winning, there wouldn't be a peace treaty. But they continued to fight, and despite all the hostilities on both sides, they were able to come to an agreement. But the good thing is, as a woman, she resisted the Roman, takeover of our cities. She resisted them for so long, and it's one of the most intriguing stories. African women are brave women. African women are, they're not just people in the other room. African women across history have played a great role in making in defining who we are today. So to every other young girl out there who says, "Oh, we can see that in present time there are other women also who've taken this upon themselves, who've continued on this part." So one more time, we'll say a very good a very very special happy Women's Day to all the women and to every African woman there doing their best, contributing their best to making life easy and better for all of us. This one gets me. This one gets me. Aya Ashantewa. That's from 1840 to 1921 in Ghana, from the Empire of Ghana to the nation of Ghana. And she is the queen mother of the Ashanti Ghana and the gatekeeper of the golden stool. I read a story recently that struck me, that there was a king in the same Ashanti kingdom that was kidnapped and taken to another country, you know, and they were there for so many years. Only of recent time did some of their almost fourth or fifth generation return back to Ghana. And that's what slavery and colonization has done to the continent of Africa. But it's amazing how this woman's story is captured. Famously known for when the British colonialism threatened her people's freedom, at the age of 70, defied expectation and led the Ashanti resistance. There has been women over, just like the first one we looked at and the second one. This woman stood in front of the resistance. Not just that they were fierce warriors, not just that they were skilled warriors, not just that they were, gifted in what they were brave. So their African child, their African young girl, their African woman, you have what it takes rather to be strong, to be brave, to accomplish what you want to accomplish. This was somebody at the age of 70, defied expectations and led the people into resistance. Now, we don't carry guns and weapons of war, but we can be courageous in the place of our responsibility. And today, in the present world, I see a lot of young women doing excellent things. I see a lot of young African women pursuing their careers, being mothers, being a lot of them PhD students, a lot of them defining def, defiling the odds against them to rise to the top. It's not just you. You've had mothers. You have mothers from generation to generation. You have mothers from the 18th century. You have mothers from the 40 BC. You have mothers from the 10 BC. You have mothers all from the 50 BC. You have mothers all of those times. You have mothers from the early 80s who have stood out resisting and saying the limitations before us, we can surpass them. This person was a fierce warrior and astute strategist. She rallied the troops. The men of Ashanti will not go forward, then we will. He said, if the men of Ashanti will not go forward, then we will. I shall call upon my fellow with a rallying cry. I must say this, if women will fight the white man, though if 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 women we will fight the white man, though ultimately captured and exiled. Her legacy as a symbol of courage and resistance against oppression continues to inspire. It's not of one of the things that I've learned over the time is that we always think that everything we do must culminate into a big success before we say, yeah, we did something nice. So many persons are inspired through your success. So many persons are inspired through your courage, even if you don't succeed in it. The fact that you try to do it encourages people. So, their young lady, their young child, their you know, their young lady, be encouraged, knowing that whatever you are fighting and striving to be today, it did not start with you. As we celebrate the International Women's Day, you need to know that your mothers strove hard for this. Your grandmothers, your great grandmothers worked so, even if history tried so much to cover it, with the invention of the social media and all the archives, we are able to dig out the history of the women who shaped our continent. We're able to dig out the history of the women who shaped our lives. We're able to dig out the women from all the 54 countries or 55 countries in Africa. We're able to dig out and say, these are the women who changed our lives. These are the women who contributed to who we are today. I'm a strong advocate for African liberation. I'm a strong advocate for empowering or Africans achieving success and true financial independence. I'm a true advocate for that. I do also understand, like I said earlier, our world takes the shape of the heart of the women in our lives. I repeat it again. Our world takes the shape of the heart of the women in our lives. One of the things I always ask people is all the great men that we read about, the ones that were very wicked, did very, wicked things. There were women in their lives. They had mothers in their lives. So also the brave men who accomplished great feats for all of us had women in their lives. So their young African lady, don't be afraid to go out to try to change your world. It's not, you may look back and say, oh, we haven't seen a lot of African women. But listen, there are women in African history who've paid the price for us to be where we are today. Let's go on and look at another person. I love this one. This one is from Angola. This one is from Angola. A beautiful history. She refused to bow. The thing was that this person made a deal to save her people with the Portuguese. There was an agreement, there was a treaty signed between her leadership and the Portuguese. But the Portuguese reneged on that agreement. The Portuguese reneged on that alliance, on the agreement that was made. She had to enter into another alliance with the Dutch. And through that alliance, she was able to save her people. And that's why she's called a great, not just that she was a great warrior, she was a strong strategist. She was very strategic in forming alliances that saved her people. The queen who turns men into women, she outsmarted and outmaneuvered her enemies, securing temporary peace treaties, preserving her people's autonomy. Her cunning and resilience remain inspiration for those fighting for freedom and justice. So, As African women or as an African young lady, you're fighting for freedom and justice. You're fighting for social balance, social equality in your country. You know, you can always look back. You can always look back and say, there are women who's done it. Whatever you're trying to do right now, the question is, are there women that has done it? Is there a woman that has done what you want to do? Or is there a woman that you can pick inspiration from her life? And these are women that you can pick inspirations from their life. In anything you do, you need strategy. And this one was a master strategist. In anything you do, you need to be smart. And this one was pretty, very smart. Because it took a lot for her to negotiate with the Portuguese temporarily before the Portuguese reneged. Then she had to make another strategic meeting and negotiation with the Dutch, and the Dutch agreed to partner with her in fighting the Portuguese. But all she wanted was just to preserve the history, to preserve the autonomy of her people. She wanted to preserve the autonomy of her people. So whatever it is that you are fighting for, whatever it is that you are, it could be for your family. It could be for it could be for your family, for your country, for your trying to build something. You can always leverage on the courage of the people. One of the greatest pains of the African history is we often can't look back enough to find that courage has been in existence in our history. Courage has been in existence in our history over 100 years. Courage has been in existence in our history. Bravery has been in existence in our history. Bravery has been in existence in our history for years. You can always look back and know that bravery has been in existence in your history. I repeat it, bravery has been in existence in your history as a woman. So always be courageous. Of course, I would not leave out this one. Every time you talk about the history of Nigeria, the history of northern Nigeria, everybody always talked about Queen Amina, the Queen of Zazu. There's a musician that always talked about Zazu. You know, this was a queen in 1533. 1533. You know, for 34 years, more than just a warrior, Queen Amina was a shrewd strategist and diplomat. Expanding the Hausa kingdom through the cunning negotiation and fierce battles, she earned Amin the moniker Amin the Conqueror. Legend speaks of her leading 20,000 cavalry to battle, clad in shining armor and brandishing a bow. She Her reign saw advancement in agriculture, trade, and infrastructure, solidifying the region's prosperity for generations. This was not a man. This was a woman. So their African child, their African lady, again I say, bravery has been in the heart of your mothers. Courage has been in the belly of your mothers. You were born from the belly of courage. So whether you're in Africa, whether you're in Europe, whatever you're in Turkey, wherever you are from the loins and of bravery. You are born by the women of bravery. Courage is been You were born with courage in your mother's womb. If at this time women could be called strategists and diplomats, there's nothing stopping you today. You can accomplish what people think is impossible. You can do what people think is impossible. These are women who've already, from Sudan, from Angola, from Ethiopia, from South Africa, from Nigeria. You have the history of women who have been exceptionally excellent. The space for today is not enough to talk about women and the impact they've had in our lives, in our continent. And you are the next woman that history will talk about. Come on, you could do it. I don't know the field you're in, but I know for sure When a woman puts her heart to achieve something, she definitely could do it. Queen Amina ran with 20,000. The Queen of Kush ran with 30,000 soldiers. That means you have the capacity to build a company of 20,000 employees. That means they're African young child, they're African woman, they're African lady. You have the capacity to build a company of 30,000 employees. You have the capacity to run a company of 20,000 employees, 30,000 employees. You can do it. How do we know that you can do it? How do I know that you could do it? Because the women before you in African history did it. The women before you in African history did it. And the history couldn't just be wiped out. The more we dig in these days, the more we find history about our people, about our mothers. And every time we hear Happy Women's Day, we ought to think about the courage, the resilience, the patience, the strategy, and the wit and cunningness of these mothers of African history. I'll take this one back. Yes. And this is Queen Nandi of Zulu. Is said to be the mother of Shaka Zulu. You know, like there's no way I could have just done this without adding Shaka Zulu and our South Africans to it. This is called a South African Zulu queen and mother of Shaka Zulu. Renowned for her wisdom, political acumen, and courage. She served as advisor and confidant to her son. During Shaka's youth, she assured his safety and education, shaping him into the formidable leader he became. Her influence on Zulu traditions and military strategies is undeniable, earning her the title of Mother of the Nation. She earned the title of the Mother of the Nation. So, to all the mothers of the nation from African history, I want to say a happy Women's Day celebration to you. Whether you're from South Africa, whether you're from your Sudan, whether you're from Nigeria, whether you're from Cameroon, whether you're from Ethiopia, Namibia, wherever you come from, Angola, all through your history, we have women and mothers of nations that laid the foundation of what Africa is today, that laid the foundation of the future that we have. That was the future that they saw, which is the future we're living now. You have what it takes, dear African child, to build the future that your children will see, and that one day they will count you as a mother of the nation. All the thing you can speak from all of the women we've talked about this evening, you see that one by one they were counted to be strategists. They were counted to be strategists. They were counted to be people of wisdom. They were counted to be people of courage. It's a common denomination amongst all the women we've talked about. Courage. So their girl child, their woman, their mother, their wife, be courageous. Africa needs her women to be courageous. Africa needs her women to speak up. Africa needs her women to lead. Africa needs her women to take action. Africa needs her women to be bold. Africa needs her women to step up the game. Africa needs her women to act even when men fail to act. This is your destiny. This is what your mothers have done from centuries past. Every century had an African mother of the nation. So there, girl child, you have all the education. You have all the tools more than your mothers had. And I know that, like I said, the world that we live in, our world, takes the shape of your heart. If you're courageous as a woman, people around you will be courageous. If you're bold as a woman, people around you will be bold. If you're wise as a woman, people around you will be wise. I hope that you can leverage on the lesson that we on the history that we have dug out today, and and make a little impact in your own way. So, and one more time, I want to say happy International Women's Day. Today, we have focused on talking about women in African history and learning lessons from them so that we can also impact and affect our world today. So, to all the women in our lives, to all our wives and our mothers, our daughters, happy Women's Day. And to all the African women all over the world, to African young women, to African mothers doing their best to give shape their world and shape history. We want to say thank you for doing your best. We love you. We appreciate you all. And to our mothers past, we still remember you and we all appreciate what you do and we celebrate you. Thank you and thank you. Happy Women's Day celebration. Until we see you next week Saturday. Take care of yourself. And don't forget to share on Facebook, Instagram, comment, and invite someone to be part of it. Thank you.